This is Jordan Hale. You're listening to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If you can hear my voice, you're still out there. And if you're still out there, that means you're still standing. That's more than some can say tonight. I know the air is thick, not just with smoke or sirens or the hum of broken power lines swinging overhead. It's heavy with something you can't see, something sharp and bitter, like grief before it has a name. Maybe that's what this is now, a country learning how to grieve while it's still falling apart. We're on day 6 since everything snapped, not with a bang, not even with a scream, just a split, like a seam torn open with bare hands. 1 minute people were lining up at polling stations, arguing over exit polls. The next, half the states refused to finish counting. The other half said they were done, and gave us 2 presidents, 2 men, both swearing in, both with hands on different Bibles, both claiming they're the only real one. The courts were supposed to sort it out, but one of the justices, the one who used to speak most clearly when it mattered, recused herself. No one knows why. Some say threats. Others say she just couldn't carry it anymore. That left us with a tie. And in a tie, nothing moves forward. Nothing gets fixed. So people took that silence and filled it with bullets. The first real moment, the one people keep playing on loop, wasn't even real. A video, just a few seconds long. You probably saw it. National Guard troops in body armor firing into a crowd of unarmed people outside a state house. The screams, the blood, it felt too clean, too perfect. And it was. Someone made it up. But that didn't stop it from spreading. Didn't matter that the footage was a fake. The moment people believed it, the damage was done. No one waited for confirmation. They didn't need truth, just an excuse. Militias moved fast. 3 state capitals hit at once, armed, coordinated, live-streamed like it was a show, like they were proud of what they'd done. In Phoenix, the police walked away, just left their posts. In Lansing, they switched sides. And in Tallahassee, the governor vanished and hasn't come back on air since. I've been sitting here in this station, watching the maps go gray, not because the lights are out, though a lot of them are, but because control is gone. Counties are breaking apart, cities turning inward, neighborhoods setting up their own checkpoints. You try to drive too far from home now, and someone will ask you who you voted for. If they don't like your answer, you don't make it to the next block. But this isn't just red states versus blue states. That story died years ago. This is something messier. It's rural versus urban. It's faith versus fear. It's who has power and who's willing to kill to keep it. You can't draw lines on a map anymore. You have to draw them around people. Right now, there's a woman in Oklahoma City broadcasting from her bathtub. Says it's the only place in the apartment without windows. She reads off the names of people trapped in buildings where the power's been cut and the doors welded shut. She says their names like a prayer. I wrote them down earlier. I'll read them tonight before I sign off. If you know them, if you hear your name, we're still listening. There's a man in Savannah who used to play jazz at the riverfront bars. Now he plays into his ham radio, says the music keeps his neighbors from panicking, says it's the only way to remind his kids that something beautiful still exists. There are others, dozens of them, with makeshift antennas and car batteries and half-melted solar panels, building little pockets of noise in a world that's gone too quiet. If you're listening to this, you're part of that now. You're not alone. Not yet. They shut the internet down on day 2. DHS said it was to stop misinformation, but the real result? Panic. When the feeds went dark, people started assuming the worst. You'd think we'd learned from the last time. But maybe there wasn't a last time, just smaller warnings no one paid attention to. Encrypted chat apps filled the vacuum: Signal, Telegram, a few others I don't recognize. People aren't just talking on them. They're planning, building cells, sharing coordinates. I saw one message today from a group in western Pennsylvania calling themselves the Free Counties. Said they're pulling out of the Union until the election's resolved. They have roadblocks, drones, and something they call a border wall made from burned-out trucks. I don't know if they're bluffing, but the pictures looked real. Federal agencies aren't whole anymore. FEMA says it's following orders from the president in D.C. The FBI split. Some of them walked out of field offices and joined local groups. One agent in Atlanta said she's forming a third option. Neither government, neither rebellion. Just people trying to survive without being used. Some governors are trying to stay neutral. That lasted about 48 hours. Then someone shot at a press conference in Des Moines. No one died, but the governor hasn't been seen since. Down in Texas, one Air National Guard base refused to follow D.C. orders. They took over the airspace around Houston. No flights in or out now unless they say so. The mayor begged them to stand down. They answered with a flyover. Low, loud, just high enough not to hit the rooftops. I've been trying to keep track of who's on what side, but the truth is, it changes every hour. It's not about states anymore. It's about neighborhoods, about who has fuel, who has food, who has weapons, who can build trust faster than they lose it. One of the saddest reports I've gotten so far came from a nurse in Phoenix. She called in with a list of names, kids who didn't make it to the safe zone when the hospital shut its doors. No cause of death, just names. She cried between each one, but she finished the list. I told her I'd read them out loud. I'll do that later tonight, too. There's a boy in Nebraska who's been writing letters to anyone who might still be alive in the next town over. His parents won't let him leave the house. So he ties them to old soda bottles and tosses them in the river. He wrote in one, "If you're reading this, please write back, even if it's just to say you're there." That's where we are now. People sending bottles downstream, hoping someone else is on the other bank. Stay with me. I'm not going off the air. Not tonight. It's quiet now. Too quiet. You ever notice that? How silence has weight. It presses down on you. You can feel it in your chest like a held breath that never lets go. Out my window, there's no traffic, no dogs barking. Just that kind of hush that only comes when people are either sleeping or hiding. I think most are hiding now. Earlier tonight, I picked up a weak signal from someone calling themselves Whiskey 3. Couldn't tell where they were broadcasting from, but they sounded calm. Maybe too calm. Said they were moving through what used to be Route 66, somewhere between Flagstaff and Albuquerque. Said they saw homemade checkpoints every few miles. Not government, not militia either. Just locals with hunting rifles and spray-painted signs that say, "Turn around. We don't want trouble." I used to drive that road when I was younger, windows down, music loud, counting the billboards until I hit the next diner. Hard to picture it now. Hard to imagine those same gas stations boarded up, those same truck stops turned into bunkers. Whiskey 3 said something else I can't stop thinking about. They said, "This isn't a country anymore. It's a map made of panic." And I think they're right. Because there's no one center now. No voice anyone trusts. I'm not even sure anyone's in charge. Not really. The people who say they are, they're hiding behind gates and blackout curtains, making statements no one listens to anymore. We've had 2 presidents giving orders at the same time, each one calling the other a traitor, each one swearing their orders are the ones that count. And what happens when you've got 2 kings and no kingdom? The answer is checkpoints. The answer is curfews that only exist on paper. The answer is every man with a rifle thinking he's the last law that matters. I don't think most people want this. I really don't. I think most people just want to go home. They want to go back to the part where you could forget about politics for a few hours. When grocery stores had food on all the shelves and voting didn't feel like choosing which way your town might burn. But we can't go back. That road is closed. Now it's all about how long you can stay above water before someone pushes your head back under. Tonight, I got a message from a teacher. I won't say her name in case she's still being watched, but she's sheltering inside her old middle school. Says she and 4 other families broke in through the back kitchen and barricaded the front entrance. They've got a few canned goods, some emergency flashlights, and whatever water they could pull from the gym's locker room. She teaches the kids every morning, real lessons, math reading, even history, she said. She told me, if this is the end of our country, I want these kids to know what it used to be, not what it became. She still writes tests, grades papers, gives them stickers. I asked her if she thought it mattered if the world was falling apart anyway. She said, that's exactly when it matters most. I don't know about you, but that hit me. We've heard a lot from bigger cities falling apart. But what about the small towns? The places no one ever talked about during elections? The ones you only passed through on your way to somewhere else? That's where things are unraveling slowest, but maybe hardest. One listener from northern Missouri said her town's mayor tried to declare neutrality. Just stay out of it. Said they'd help anyone. Didn't care what side they were on. It worked for 3 days. Then one side came with trucks. Said if they didn't join, they were against them. Said silence was betrayal. Now the town's church is a command post. The mayor's gone. Nobody knows if she left or was taken. You keep hearing that word in these stories, taken. That's new. People aren't just disappearing. They're being removed, erased. There's a guy out of Colorado Springs who says he's seen it happen twice. Blackout vans, no plates. They pull up, pull someone in, then vanish. You ask too many questions, you end up next. He built a bunker in his backyard. He's broadcasting from inside it now. Says the dirt and concrete keep the signal weak, but safe. He signed off with, "If they hear me, I don't care." At least someone does. There's a kind of madness settling in now. Not loud madness, not the kind that screams in the street. It's quiet. It's the kind that makes people whisper instead of shout, makes people look over their shoulder before they knock on a neighbor's door. People keep asking me what they should do, where to go, who to trust. I wish I had answers. I really do. But all I can do is tell you what I hear. Tonight, I heard that the People's Autonomy Front took over a data center outside of Portland. They're rerouting local networks, building a firewall against government surveillance. They've got hackers, engineers, even a few former telecom workers. They're not trying to build a state. They're trying to cut all the wires. You think it's about ideology at first, but then you hear they're offering people food, medicine, safety, no questions asked. you start to realize it's not about left or right anymore. It's about who can keep you breathing. Out in Utah, something different is happening. A group called Liberty Compounds has set up biometric scanners at their gates. You want in, you give a blood sample. They're printing their own currency. Kids wear barcodes on their wrists. It's clean. It's quiet. It's controlled. Too controlled, if you ask me. And then there's the corporate zones. Amazon, SpaceX, even Google, fortified campuses, armed security, big walls, bigger promises. One man wrote to me from inside the Phoenix zone, said he works 14 hours a day, but he gets meals, power, and a safe bed. Said he hasn't seen sunlight in a week, but it's better than hiding in the sewers. He ended his message with this: "It's not freedom, but it's alive." That's where we are now, choosing between living and living free. Some don't get to choose at all. I heard from someone tonight, a guy named Eli, broadcasting out of a parking garage in downtown Cincinnati. He strung copper wire along the concrete ceiling and rigged a battery out of an old UPS from a bank he says got looted last week. Says it still smells like gunpowder and burnt paper down there, but it's high ground and no one's tried to take it yet. Eli said something I haven't been able to forget. He said, "This isn't a war between armies. It's a war between neighbors." And that's exactly it, isn't it? This isn't about uniforms and battlefields. It's not some clean headline like history books make it sound. It's a dad in jeans pointing a shotgun at his neighbor's porch because someone told him the guy across the street voted different. It's two people who used to share holiday pies, now standing at opposite ends of a cul-de-sac, staring each other down through blinds. And it's the quiet, too. The quiet that comes after the shouting. That part where everyone's just waiting for someone else to move first. Eli says the city's split block by block now. Apartment buildings flying different flags, like tiny countries stacked on top of each other. He said one floor listens to the old federal broadcasts, still loyal. Another floor gets daily updates from a militia app and swears the real government's already fallen. You go to the wrong floor, you might not come back. He told me about a boy, maybe 11, who's been running messages between buildings. No phone, no radio, just paper, folded and tucked into his shirt. He dodges patrols, bribes old ladies with chocolate bars, said he's faster than anyone he's ever seen. Eli called him the last courier. That kid's braver than most adults I know. I got another report tonight from what used to be downtown Atlanta. Someone's jamming signals out there. Real tech. Not just garage radio static. Full spectrum jamming. Some think it's ex-military. Others think it's coming from underground. Old fiber bunkers, maybe. Whatever it is, nobody can get a clean message in or out of that area. Except for one frequency. 91.8. It's just music, over and over, some kind of classical loop, sad strings, sometimes a piano, no words, no DJ, just quiet noise. Some say it's a code, others think it's bait. I don't know what it is, but I've tuned into it. It plays the same song, every hour, on the hour. The kind of song that makes your ribs ache a little. Maybe that's the point. Another listener from western Kansas told me her town's trying something new. Every morning at sunrise, they ring the old school bell. Not for school, though. That's long gone. They ring it so people know the town is still standing, that no one's breached the perimeter, that someone made it through the night without gunfire or drones. She said it doesn't sound like hope. It sounds like holding your breath and exhaling all at once. She asked me to ring something too. Said it would help to know someone outside can still hear it. So I found an old handbell in the back closet of this station. I cleaned the dust off, and I'll ring it right now. Just once. Sound of a bell ringing once. There. If you're from that town in Kansas, now you know I heard you. More news coming out of the coasts. New York is a patchwork now. Manhattan declared itself a sanctuary zone. No weapons, no flags, just barricades and volunteers trying to keep the chaos from reaching too far. They've converted taxis into armored shuttles, runways into vegetable gardens. One woman said they're trading poetry for soap, not because it's useful, because it reminds them they're still people. But not far from there, in Jersey and the Bronx, things are falling apart fast. Gangs are taking whole blocks, not for money or drugs, but for power, water, and the ability to say who lives where. One listener sent me a short recording, just 12 seconds. A street, a man walking, then a sound, not a gunshot, just silence, like the whole city held its breath. Then the tape ends. That's what the war sounds like now. Not bombs, not tanks, just empty space where a life used to be. In Los Angeles, there are drones again. Nobody knows who's flying them. Could be the feds, could be private, could be foreign. The camera angles are too smooth, the targeting too precise. People hide in underground parking garages, paint the windows black. They've seen what happens when the red light shows up and stays pointed at the same rooftop for more than 10 seconds. It doesn't take long after that. Down in Miami, we've got confirmation of something even stranger. Revolutionaries. Real ones. Cuban-backed, they say. Speaking Spanish over shortwave. Passing out food and leaflets. Their symbol is a burning palm tree inside a circle. They've taken over the port. They don't talk about left or right. Just hunger, power, dignity. They say they're not invaders. They say they're there because we asked for help. Even if we didn't say it out loud. We also got word, this one's harder to verify, that Russian peacekeepers landed in parts of Alaska. At the invitation of local leadership, the message said. I don't even know what that means anymore. Who counts as leadership now? A mayor? A sheriff? A man with 100 rifles? No one's officially confirmed it. But the skies are busy up there, and not with birds. I had a caller from Anchorage. Said she saw men speaking Russian handing out bottled water and generators. She asked one of them if this was an invasion. He just shrugged and said, "You invited us." Then he walked away. What do you even say to that? Out west, we've got free Cascadia now. It started as a joke, an online meme. Then it became a flag. Now it's a line on a map that doesn't show up on any official document. But the people out there, in Oregon, Idaho, Northern California, they're not joking anymore. They've taken radio towers, set up patrols, airdropped pamphlets. One of them even sent me a box of seeds. Said, "We don't need more ammo. We need more food." Maybe they're right. I want to talk about something else now. Something that doesn't make headlines but keeps happening in every corner of what's left. Whispers. Not the kind you hear between friends, not gossip. I mean actual coded whispers, repeated on open bands, over shortwave, ham, even CB. Words that don't make sense by themselves. Blue window, 12th stair, clockwise ash. It's spreading. Some say it's a signal between factions. Some think it's AI-generated gibberish meant to scramble military response time. But then there are others. Ones who say it's nothing more than fear wearing a mask. A way to feel like someone out there is still organizing something, even if it's just static in a pattern. People cling to structure when everything else falls apart. I get it. Back here at the station, we've been losing power more often. The generator's running low, and I've started turning off everything that's not essential just to keep the broadcast alive. I sit here in the dark most of the night. Just a desk lamp, the soundboard, and this mic. Sometimes I talk even when I'm not on air, like I'm still practicing how to be a person. Earlier tonight, I lit a candle and stared at the wall for about an hour. There's a map on it. One of those big laminated things you used to see in elementary school. Bright colors, state borders, time zones. Now I look at it and think, none of those lines matter anymore. The borders are being redrawn every day, not by treaties or Congress or courts, but by fear, by whoever holds the nearest grocery store, the radio tower, the power grid. Speaking of the grid, we've got confirmed outages across the Midwest, not accidental, not weather-related, targeted, whole substations hit with makeshift explosives, transformers melted from the inside. Someone out there knows exactly where to strike. And every time a city goes dark, something else steps into the gap. Sometimes it's a militia. Sometimes it's a corporation. Sometimes it's just a dad with a pickup and enough fuel to run a generator and keep the streetlights on for a block. But it always gets filled. That's what collapse looks like. Not emptiness. Substitution. Someone wrote me last night from a tent city outside of St. Louis. They said it started with just 5 people. Now there are over 200. Engineers, teachers, retirees, people who've lost their homes, their phones, their sense of where they belong, but not each other. They've rigged up solar panels from junkyards, strung wires between trees, boiled river water over campfires. One guy built a working stove out of cinder blocks and a repurposed car exhaust. You want to talk about resilience? Forget bunkers. It's people like that. Building from scraps. Teaching kids how to read while a drone circles above. He ended his letter with this: "We don't know what flag to fly, so we don't fly one at all. We just try to be good." I read that 3 times. I've started keeping a folder of messages like that. Notes of kindness. Stories that aren't about checkpoints and executions and fuel shortages. Just people remembering how to be people. Like the family in Montana who took in 4 strangers when the highway shut down. Let them sleep in the barn. Fed them what little they had. No questions. No politics. Just warmth. Or the old woman in upstate New York who walks her street every day with a notebook. She checks on the houses, leaves chalk marks on the mailboxes so others know who's okay and who needs help. She doesn't even know who might be watching. She just does it, because that's how she was raised. Sometimes I think this whole country is just a patchwork quilt someone dropped on the floor. Threads fraying, corners lifting. But every now and then, someone kneels down and tries to tuck the pieces back in place. I don't know if it'll ever be the same. I doubt it. But I know we're still trying. I want to give a quick update from the south before I lose signal again. Reports out of New Orleans are scattered. Some say the levees are being watched, not by police, but by private guards from a security company that no longer has a name, just a patch with a barcode. They don't speak. They don't warn. They shoot if you get too close. Others say there's a pirate broadcast down there. A woman who plays jazz records and reads recipes. No politics, no warnings, just memories of what it felt like to be home. I haven't picked her up yet, but I hope to. Up in Chicago, the mayor's office is gone, burned in week 2. What's left of the city has been divided. The lakefront is held by a group calling themselves the Ward, mostly young people, organizers, medics, a few vets. They've turned Wrigley Field into a shelter and supply hub. They've got rules. No guns inside, no threats. You volunteer or you leave. One man called in from the rooftop of a condo overlooking the stadium, said the field was lit by strings of solar lamps, said you could see people playing music again, kids kicking soccer balls between shattered bleachers. Said it almost felt like a future. And I guess that's the thing we're all reaching for, isn't it? A future. Not some perfect one. Not one we all agree on. Just one where we don't have to flinch every time the radio goes quiet. One where we get to wake up, open our doors, and not wonder who's on the other side. That's not too much to want. That's not some dream. That's just life. And it's worth fighting for. If you're still with me tonight, I want to tell you something simple. You matter. Not because of what you do. Not because of how prepared you are. Just because you're still here. That counts for something. Every time I crack this mic, I think about the people listening who aren't even sure if their radios are working right. Maybe you're hearing this under a pile of blankets in the back of a van. Maybe you've strung an antenna out your attic window. Maybe you're just holding your breath and hoping the static shifts into something that sounds like a voice. If that's you, I'm here. You're not crazy. You're not alone. The world hasn't ended. It's just paused, bent, shifted sideways. And we're all trying to figure out how to walk without falling over. I got a call earlier from a guy in Arkansas. His name's Mitch. Said he's living in what used to be a library. They cleared out the nonfiction and stacked up sandbags. Still got a working coffee maker in the staff room and one of those battery-powered lanterns you can charge with a crank. He said every night he sits by the window on the second floor and watches the street. Nothing moves. Just shadows, wind, and sometimes a deer. But what got me was this. He said he leaves the reading lights on inside. Not all of them. Just enough. Said it's so. People know the place is still safe. If anyone's walking by, if anyone's lost, they'll see the light and know somebody's inside who hasn't given up yet. He calls it his lighthouse. I told him I'd pass that along, because maybe we all need to think like that now. Not just about staying alive, but how to be visible, how to shine, even if it's only a dim bulb in an old reading lamp. I've been getting more updates about the bigger factions lately, not because they're winning anything, but because they're loud, because they're trying to carve out identities like war makes them more real. The Federalist Loyalists, that's what they're calling themselves now, say they're the last line holding the country together. They've still got drones, missile silos, NORAD, and what's left of the Navy. They swear they're not going anywhere. Problem is, most people aren't looking to be ruled from above anymore. Not when above feels like it never looked down to begin with. Then you've got the state militias. These aren't just guys in camouflage running drills in the woods. These are former guard units, veterans, ex-cops, people who know how to move, how to strike, and, more importantly, how to coordinate without being seen. Some have taken over small towns and turned them into gated posts. Others move constantly, setting up field bases in schools and fire stations. They use encrypted apps to talk. Some still salute the flag. Others have stitched new ones from scratch. They don't all agree, but they agree on one thing. They won't be governed by people they didn't choose. That makes them dangerous. Not because they're evil, but because they're convinced they're righteous. Then there's the People's Autonomy Front. Not a name you'd expect in a civil war, but here we are. They're urban, decentralized, fast, hackers, organizers, climate radicals. They don't want power, they want disruption. They blow up substations not to rule, but to level the field. They think if everything burns equally, no one can rebuild with a bigger hand. They're not looking to win territory. They're trying to erase it. And finally, we've got the Liberty compounds. You've probably heard about them, tucked away in Utah, parts of Montana, northern Florida. Gated camps, biometric scanning, gun towers, ID badges printed on the spot. Some people go willingly. Others are born into it now. They trade using their own coin, use barter when they must, say they're free from the collapse. But from where I'm sitting, they look more like prisons with a flag over the door. Some say they're peaceful. Others say they shot a refugee convoy that got too close last week. It's hard to know what's true. Harder still to know who decides. And that's the thing no one really wants to talk about. Truth isn't shared anymore. It's weaponized. It's shaped by whatever voice you hear first, whatever face appears at the top of your feed, assuming you still have a feed to scroll. There's no referee anymore. No one to say, that's a lie. No one everyone still believes. So now we all pick our version and defend it like it's sacred. Even me. I try to stay neutral. Try to just report what comes in. But I'm still human. I still flinch when I hear kids crying in the background of a message. I still feel my stomach drop when someone whispers, "They're at the door." And when I get it wrong, when I tell you something that turns out to be false, I carry that too. Because this isn't just news. This is survival. This is people making decisions based on voices in the dark. And I don't want to be another reason someone didn't make it home. If I've said something that put you in danger, I'm sorry. I hope you made it out anyway. Tonight I'm going to stay on as long as the power holds. I've got a list of listener stories to read, a few names to remember, a poem someone sent from a cabin near Lake Superior. It's simple, just 4 lines, scratched into paper yellow with age. If the stars still shine, then I will wait, with matches dry, and an open gate. That's it. No author, just a note that said, if you're reading this, you're still part of something. Maybe that's what matters now. I want to read something now. It came in earlier this afternoon by courier. Actual courier. A guy on a bike, tires patched with duct tape, wearing a vest made of license plates. Said he didn't want to be named. Just handed me a folded piece of paper and asked if I still had batteries for my flashlight. He said, "This came from Kansas City. Didn't pass through a single checkpoint. Thought you'd want to see it." I unfolded it, read it 3 times. Then I told him I'd read it on the air. So here goes. My name is Carly. I'm 15. I don't know if I'm alive because I'm lucky or because I'm invisible. Maybe both. I'm writing from a school that hasn't had power in days. There's no signal here, and I think that's why it's safe. We've got 43 people, mostly kids, 2 teachers, 1 janitor, and a dog named Button. We've been drawing maps, not of borders, but of kindness. We mark every place we hear laughter, every window that glows warm at night, every neighbor who still waves. We call it the living map. And if anyone's reading this, you're on it now. That's the whole thing. I cried after I read it the first time. Not because it's sad, but because it reminded me that even when things feel like they're breaking apart beyond repair, somebody out there is still drawing maps with crayons, still finding ways to say, "We exist." Carly, if this broadcast reaches your school somehow, know this: your map matters. You matter. You reminded me why I'm still sitting here. I want to say something else tonight, something I haven't really said out loud yet. I'm scared, not just of what's out there, though that's bad enough. I'm scared of losing my voice. Not this one, the one you're hearing now, but the part inside me that remembers how to talk like things will get better. It's easy to get used to the static. Easy to start speaking in code, to whisper, to filter your thoughts through what ifs and who's listening. But if we all stop talking like humans, then what's the point? I've been trying to keep this station running with the help of 2 solar panels, a battery rig, and an old diesel generator that makes more noise than it should. I ration the power. Only play music once in a while. Mostly just voices now. Updates, stories, warnings. I miss playing songs. Back when this was a real station, a regular one, I used to start every morning with the same track. An old folk tune, one guitar, a voice that cracked in the chorus. I'd hum along while making coffee. I haven't played it since the day the internet died. Felt too soft. But maybe soft is what we need again. Maybe soft is how we survive this. I'll dig out the tape tomorrow. Maybe I'll play it if I still have power. Maybe not the full song, just enough to remind us that it existed. I want to talk about something else before the signal drops again. The partition rumors. They're everywhere now. People saying we won't go back to one country again. That we'll end up with 4, maybe 5, maybe more. There's talk of a United Systems of North America forming out of the Northeast, something smaller in the Pacific Corridor. An independent stretch running from Texas through Oklahoma and down to Florida. No one agrees on the borders, but they all agree on one thing. This isn't a pause, it's a breaking. The politicians still sitting in their bunkers in D.C. keep saying reunification, keep talking about sending aid, about transition protocols. Meanwhile, the other government, the one that started broadcasting out of Dallas last week, says they're the real voice of the Constitution, that the old order is dead, that they've called a new convention and rewritten what it means to be American. I've read both sets of statements. You want to know the truth? They sound the same. Full of promises, full of certainty, but no voice in either one sounds like it knows what a grocery aisle looks like now, or how hard it is to carry water up 10 flights of stairs when the elevators don't work and your legs are shaking from hunger. There's something hollow in their words, like they're trying to speak to a country that no longer exists. And maybe that's the real problem. Maybe we're already gone. At least the version of us that thought we could hold 50 stars in one sky without tearing. But that doesn't mean we can't make something new. It just means we have to tell the truth about what's been lost. There's a girl in Vermont who broadcasts late at night from a barn. You can hear the wind in her mic. She reads poetry, then names, always names, sometimes of people who are safe, sometimes of those who aren't. Last night she said something I wrote down. Maybe we weren't meant to last forever, but maybe we're meant to help someone else get there. I don't know your name, but if you're out there, thank you. I keep thinking about grocery stores, not because I miss the food, though God knows I do, but because of how quiet they are now. You ever walk past one lately? The kind that used to hum with life? shopping carts scraping tile, kids begging for candy in checkout lines, old men squinting at receipts. All of that is gone. Now they echo. I passed one yesterday on my way to check the tower relay. The doors were shattered, but someone had swept the floor. No power, no people, just a single broom leaning against the freezer aisle. Someone out there still cared enough to clean up. That stuck with me. Little things like that, they're not just habits. They're anchors, signs that someone, somewhere, still believes tomorrow is worth keeping tidy for. I got a call from a man in New Mexico. Said his wife used to own a bakery. When the town broke apart, she kept baking. Said the smell of bread kept people from panicking, even if she could only make a few loaves a day. She ran out of flour last week. People brought her cornmeal, dry beans, oats, anything they could carry. She tried every combination she could think of. Some days it worked. Some days it didn't. He said she cried over a burned pan yesterday, not because it ruined dinner, but because she felt like she was letting everyone down. She wasn't. If you're listening, I hope you know that. Your hands are doing more than cooking. They're holding something together none of us can see, but all of us feel when it's gone. Another message came in from Colorado. A teachers' union, what's left of it. They've taken over an old community center. No guns, no flags, just notebooks and whiteboards. They're still teaching, whoever shows up. Said they take turns cooking and rotating night watch. One of them has a guitar. They keep the lights dim. Run everything off car batteries and a gas-powered generator they buried in the ground to muffle the noise. They've got 20 kids, ages 6 to 14. A couple can't read. Most don't talk much anymore. But they stay. They stay because someone's there who still remembers how to tell stories, how to explain decimals, how to draw a map by hand. One of the teachers wrote me and said, "We don't know what future we're preparing them for, but we're doing it anyway." That line hit me hard. Because that's the difference between surviving and living. Surviving is a reaction. Living is a decision. And some people, even now, are still deciding. There's a woman in South Carolina who walks her block every evening, knocking on doors to check on elderly neighbors. She carries a flashlight, some crackers, a notebook, and a roll of duct tape. She fixes what she can, writes down what she can't, then comes back the next day and tries again. She said she doesn't expect thanks, just wants to be remembered as someone who showed up when others were too afraid to. She told me, "Everyone talks about rebuilding, but what about maintaining? Someone has to hold the roof up until the bricks stop falling." That's the kind of person this world doesn't make headlines about, but should. And there are others, like the man in Wisconsin who's been writing letters on paper scraps and slipping them under the windshield wipers of abandoned cars. Every letter starts the same way. If you find this, you're not alone. That's it. Sometimes he writes a joke, sometimes a memory. Once, he left a peanut butter packet and a spoon taped to the dash. He doesn't sign them, says he doesn't want recognition, just wants someone to feel seen when they thought they were invisible. We need more of that. I got a shortwave ping from someone outside of Reno. Guy didn't say much, just 5 words. "We're still here. Keep talking." So I will. I'll keep talking until the mic breaks, or the fuel runs out, or the roof caves in from whatever storm comes next. And even then, maybe someone else will take over. Read from the same pages, speak in the same tone. Just enough to remind the next person that the thread hasn't snapped completely. That's what this station is now, not just sound, Not just reports, it's the thread. Thin, frayed, but still here. I don't think people understand how fast everything unraveled. It didn't take weeks. It didn't take months. It took days. One minute we were arguing over ballots. The next, you couldn't drive across state lines without someone checking your papers, or your accent, or the sticker on your bumper. Someone told me yesterday that his neighbor pulled down the American flag from his own porch, not to replace it with another, but because he didn't want anyone guessing where he stood. He said, "I'd rather they think I'm nothing than think I'm the wrong thing." That's what it's come to. A country full of people who'd rather erase themselves than risk being misread. I used to think the scariest thing about civil war was the fighting. But now, I think it's the forgetting. The way people unlearn each other. The way you stop seeing someone you've known your whole life because they said the wrong sentence or wore the wrong color at the wrong moment. I had a friend, real close, who I haven't heard from since day 2. He texted me a single line before the towers went down. They think I'm with them. I'm not. I don't know what happened after that. I don't know who they were. I just know he hasn't shown up since. I keep replaying that message, hoping it means he made it out, hoping that maybe one day he'll tune into this frequency and know I'm still looking for him. I keep a chair by the door, just in case. Another listener from Iowa sent a message that stuck with me. Said her town has stopped using street names. Too dangerous. Instead, they use landmarks. The red barn, the gas station with the shattered window, the house with the plastic flamingo still standing. Said it's easier to navigate when the world doesn't make sense on a map anymore. She also said this: "We don't ask questions here. Not about where you came from. Only if you brought clean water and if you can help stack wood." That's a kind of kindness you don't see much anymore. I wish I could say the same everywhere. There's been fighting near Pittsburgh. Real fighting. Not ambushes, not random gunfire, full-on engagements. Someone, nobody knows who, took control of a rail yard and turned it into a weapons depot. Then another group tried to take it back. It's still burning. I got audio from a guy on the roof of an old department store across the river. You could hear the cracks of gunfire, then silence, then what sounded like chanting. He said it was a standoff. Neither side won. They just waited each other out, then disappeared into the dark. The next morning, everything was ash. People keep asking when this ends, and I don't have an answer. I'm not sure it ends all at once. Maybe it just burns out in pockets. Maybe people just stop caring who's in charge. Maybe we settle into silence, and the noise just becomes background. But I don't want that. I want a country where kids can sleep without dreaming of sirens, where old people don't have to carry gas masks to the market, where teachers don't have to teach subtraction under the whine of drones overhead. It sounds far off, I know, but it's still something to reach for. Got another story out of Michigan. A family, parents and a teenage son, trapped in their attic for 2 days. Infected the basement. No exit. Except that's not what happened. They weren't trapped by disease. They were trapped by people. Armed men on the street, firing at anything that moved. The family didn't panic. They didn't yell. The dad grabbed a ham radio and started broadcasting. Calmly, clearly, he gave instructions, reinforcement ideas, tips on how to barricade a weak door. Said they were okay. Said if anyone could hear, just know they tried. Then static. I haven't heard from them since. I replayed his voice 3 times. He didn't sound afraid. He sounded resolved. I hope they made it. I've been keeping track of these voices, writing their names on the wall behind the console. Every time someone speaks up, even once, they get a mark. It's not a memorial. It's a log. Proof that someone was here, that someone still had something to say. There's an old man down in Louisiana who calls once a week. He doesn't say much, just plays his harmonica for 20 seconds, then hangs up. He says the notes are for his wife, that she used to hum that song while sweeping. She's gone now, but the song still exists. In the air, on the wire, between breaths. I keep thinking about how sound travels, how it moves long after we stop making it. Maybe that's the whole point of radio, not to command, not to report, just to echo, to remind someone somewhere that they're not imagining the shape of someone else's life. If you can still hear me, hold on. Just breathe. Drink water if you got it. Look at the sky if it's clear. You're still here. That's the miracle. I've been thinking about that last phrase. You're still here. Sounds so simple, almost empty. But the more I say it, the more I realize how heavy it is. Because being here now, alive, awake, breathing, listening, that's not nothing. It's everything. We used to take it for granted, used to roll our eyes at people who said, life is a gift, like they were reading off a coffee mug. Now I get it. You're not just here. You chose to be. You got through whatever yesterday threw at you. Maybe you ran. Maybe you cried. Maybe you didn't move at all. But you're still here. That makes you stronger than you know. Earlier today, I got a voice recording from a group holed up in the ruins of an old movie theater near Raleigh. They call themselves the Projectionists. Said they've turned the auditorium into a safe space, covered the holes in the roof with blackout curtains, strung solar lights across the ceiling like stars. They don't show movies, not anymore, but they still sit in the rows each night and tell stories into a mic. Stories about the world before, not just facts, feelings. A girl named Aria shared one of hers. She said, "The last time I saw my mom, she was braiding my hair in the dark. There was no power, so she used her hands like eyes. I didn't cry until the braid was finished. She kissed the top of my head and said, 'Even when I'm gone, you'll remember this pattern.'" She paused. You could hear a tremble in her breath. Then she added, "I remember. I still feel her fingers." That story played in my head all day, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. A moment caught in amber, not war, not fire, just love, quiet and stubborn, refusing to die. We need more of that. Someone else, a nurse from Tacoma, sent me a recording of the lullaby she sings in the shelters. She said the kids don't sleep unless they hear her voice. Said she barely remembers the words anymore, so she hums half of it. Still works. Her voice cracked near the end. Not from grief, from exhaustion. She's one of thousands still doing the work, still patching wounds, boiling water, wrapping bandages, comforting strangers who feel like they don't deserve it. She didn't ask for recognition, didn't even leave her name, just signed the message. Still here, still trying. I want to say this to anyone who's listening right now, whether you're a nurse, a cook, a runner, a lookout, or someone who's just holding the line. You're not forgotten. Your work echoes, even if it doesn't go viral, even if no one claps. Even if the world never thanks you, it still matters. I wish I could tell you things were getting better, that there was a deal on the horizon, a treaty, a turning point, but I don't lie on this frequency, not even when the truth hurts. The two governments, DC and Dallas, they're not speaking anymore, at least not in any way that sounds like peace. There's been word of a summit in Iceland, some kind of neutral ground where diplomats from both sides are supposed to meet. Nobody knows who's going. Nobody knows if it's even real. But it's something. Some people are calling it the last real chance. Others say it's just a photo op before the partition gets carved in stone. I've seen mock-ups, digital borders drawn like puzzle pieces across what used to be 50 stars. The Pacific Coalition, the Eastern Accord, the Gulf Compact, the Inland Republic. Names like companies, cold, sterile, forgettable. None of them say home, but I guess that's what happens when you fracture something too hard. You lose the shape. Then you try to give it new names so it feels like progress. Still, I won't stop saying what this is. It's not just politics. It's not just war. It's grief. Grief for a country. Grief for the belief that we'd always be all right. That grief shows up in strange ways, like a woman in Arizona who started repainting old stop signs to say, "Still human." She doesn't vandalize anything else, just the signs, just that one phrase. Says it helps her sleep. Or the man in North Dakota who buried an old flag in his backyard, then planted wildflowers over it. He visits the patch every morning, coffee in hand, like it's a grave. Maybe it is. I'm not here to judge how people carry their pain. I'm just here to remind you that it still counts. Your story, your silence, your survival, it all matters, and you're still here. So am I. I used to think history was something that happened in clean chapters. Like you could close the book on one page and open the next with a fresh headline. A beginning, a middle, an end. Maybe a lesson at the bottom in bold text. But that's not how this feels. This doesn't feel like a chapter. It feels like a bleed. One moment spilling into the next, no space between. Like someone tore the calendar in half and left us wandering inside the gap. I don't know what day it is anymore. I still say dates on the broadcast sometimes, out of habit. But they don't stick. Time's not measured in days now. It's measured in distance from the last thing that went wrong. The last explosion. The last checkpoint. The last goodbye. But here's the strange part. Life keeps happening anyway. Even here, in the middle of whatever this is. A couple got married in an old orchard near Charlottesville. They didn't have a dress or a suit, no rings, no preacher, just a flashlight tied to a tree and a circle of friends holding hands. They said their vows while a drone circled overhead. Then they kissed and shared a boiled potato. Everyone laughed. For real. Someone recorded it and sent me the audio. You can hear a child ask, "Is this what weddings sound like now?" And a woman's voice answers, "No, but it's still a wedding." That made me smile. Somewhere in Kentucky, an old mechanic's been fixing radios and bicycles for free. Says he doesn't want anything in return, just wants to keep people moving, keep them talking. He's turned his garage into a repair station, welds by sunlight, listens by candle. People line up quietly. Some bring parts, some bring nothing. No one's turned away. That's the kind of person I hope history remembers. Not just the fighters, not just the leaders, The menders. People who take what's broken and don't ask how it happened. Just ask where to start. There's a girl in Maine, 12 years old, who's keeping a diary in the margins of an old biology textbook. Every day she writes 3 things: what she saw, what she heard, what she hopes. She wrote that down. What I hope. Yesterday's entry said, "I hope my brother gets to grow up without knowing what a checkpoint feels like." I sat with that line for a long time. I hope that too. I hope that for every kid who's being raised under curfew and blackout and whispers, who hears more about ration lines than recess, it's not fair. It's not what they signed up for. But it's the world they're getting handed, and they still carry it better than most of us. Kids aren't dumb. They hear everything. They see through things we try to hide. But they're also tough, sharper than we give them credit for. I heard from a boy in West Virginia who turned an old school bus into a mobile charging station, fitted it with solar panels he found at a scrapyard, drives around, powers up radios, flashlights, even medical gear when he can. Says he calls it the rolling socket. Painted that name on the side in bright orange spray paint. He's 15 years old, and he's out there making things work while adults argue over borders. He signed off his message with, "If I can help, that's enough." That kind of clarity, that's rare. And if you're listening, Socket, I heard you, loud and clear. I want to say something I haven't said in a while. If you're in a safe zone, real or makeshift, don't take it for granted. Don't waste the quiet. Use it to cook something warm. Read out loud. Draw something that has nothing to do with war. Whatever still feels human, hold on to it. Because even if everything around you is crumbling, what's inside you doesn't have to. And if you're not in a safe place, if you're hiding or running or alone, then this frequency is yours. I don't have weapons or supplies to send, but I have words, I have names, I have stories, and sometimes that's enough to get you through the night. I don't hear birds much anymore. Used to be the first thing I noticed in the mornings, before the signal checks, before I flipped on the gear. Just that soft burst of wings across the treetops. Sparrow, maybe. Finch, if I was lucky. Now it's mostly wind. Sometimes sirens. Sometimes nothing at all. The air's quieter in the wrong way. I'm not saying nature's gone. I still see it. Deer moving through parking lots. Weeds swallowing mailboxes. A single sunflower pushing through a crack in the pavement outside the studio. But everything's cautious, like the world itself is holding its breath. I think we are too. No one says it outright, but I can feel it in the messages you send. The way people talk around things instead of through them. Like if we say it plain, if we admit how close everything feels to falling apart completely, it might come true faster. But silence doesn't stop the truth. It just makes it harder to prepare. So let me be clear. There's fighting in Pennsylvania. There's ration theft in Kansas. There's something moving through Nevada that people don't have a name for yet. And that scares me more than anything, because it means the old language isn't working anymore. When we ran out of words for what's happening, we started using numbers, coordinates, frequencies, timetables. We reduced everything to signals and maps. And in the process, we forgot that real life is messy. It cries, it bleeds, it hums a song under its breath, even when there's no one left to hear it. That's why I started keeping a second journal. Not just for news, but for everything else. The stuff that slips between the reports. The kid who dances when the rain starts. The woman who writes prayers on the back of food wrappers. The man who walks 15 miles a week just to charge his neighbor's radio. That's the heart of it. That's the part of this war that won't show up in any treaty. I got a broadcast today from Northern California, from someone calling themselves just Hollow Point. The name scared me at first. Thought it was going to be one of those warlords who talk like movie villains, but it wasn't. It was a woman's voice. Steady, tired. She said she runs a signal tower out of an old firewatch post, solar-powered, hand-cranked when the sun's hiding. She reads messages for people who can't read anymore, refugees, kids, elders whose glasses got lost in the chaos. She reads them letters from their families, messages from strangers, lines from books she finds in burned libraries. She said, if the country has a spine, maybe it's made of readers. I believe that. Another listener sent in a short message from outside Tulsa. I buried my phone today. Didn't smash it, just dug a hole and put it there. Said goodbye. Felt like a funeral, but also a release. There's something powerful about that, about choosing when to let go, about deciding that connection isn't always about screens and signals. Sometimes it's about standing still and breathing the same cold air as someone across the street. I hope whoever that was finds peace. I hope we all do. Tonight, I've got the generator running just long enough to play something. Not a full song. Not sure I've got the wattage for that. But a clip. 20 seconds of static and piano from a lost track I found on a flash drive in the back office. It's scratched, raw, but I like it. So here it is. Brief moment of ambient piano and wind noise. That sound? That's not just music. That's memory. Memory of quiet drives at night. Memory of soft lamps on a kitchen table. Memory of love that didn't need explaining. I keep that file close because when the voice is cut out and the power fades, sometimes the only thing that gets through is a single note, or a heartbeat, or the sound of someone whispering, "I'm still here." And you are. You're still here, even now. Someone asked me once, back when this all started, what I thought would be the last thing to go. Not power, not money, not even government. They asked, what's the last thing that breaks? I didn't have an answer then, but I think I do now. It's trust, not the big kind, not flags and speeches and lines and an oath. I mean the small kind, the kind where you nod at your neighbor while locking your door at night, the kind where you let someone hold your baby while you fix the tire, the kind where someone offers a hand and you don't flinch. That's what's breaking now. And once that's gone, well, everything else just follows. It's not even about sides anymore. Half the time, people don't even know what they're fighting for. They say freedom, safety, justice. But they mean food, water, the right to not be told what to do by someone holding a gun. Every side claims to be protecting the people. Every side has its anthem, its signal, its maps. But none of them can guarantee that when you walk outside tomorrow, someone won't look at you like you're the enemy, even if all you're doing is hanging laundry, even if you're just walking home. I heard from a woman in Tennessee who runs a quiet post. That's what she calls it. Just a porch light and a cooler filled with first aid kits. No passwords, no flags, no questions. Just a sign out front that says, Leave what you can. Take what you need. She said no one's stolen it. Not once. Not even when the hunger got bad. She said sometimes she wakes up in the middle of the night and finds someone sitting on her porch steps, crying. Not begging, not armed, just tired. She brings them tea, sits with them, doesn't ask why they're there, because sometimes just being near someone is enough. That's the kind of trust I'm talking about. The trust that's built with silence and stayed hands. The kind that doesn't demand proof. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it works every time. But it's still there. It's hanging on. And that means something. Out near the Carolina border, there's a group of families living in an abandoned summer camp. Cabins, old mess halls, cracked canoes turned into water basins. They call it Red Pine Station. They've got a bell. A real one. Rusted, but loud. They ring it twice a day. Once at sunrise, once when the last fire dies down at night. It doesn't signal danger. It signals presence. They told me it's a reminder that if you hear the bell, it means the camp is still breathing. That no matter how bad things get, they're still here. Still making oatmeal out of powdered milk and hoarded oats. Still reading bedtime stories under bug-bitten blankets. Still fixing torn shoes with fishing line and electrical tape. They even have a classroom. 1 teacher, 3 books, 14 kids. That's a country, right there. That's everything we forgot to protect. Not votes, not oil, not borders. Just people keeping each other warm and awake. I want to share something I got from the north, way north, near the edge of Minnesota. A man called in from a hunting cabin, voice thin, weak signal. He said he hadn't seen another soul in almost a month. Snowed in. Supplies running low. No road access. No rescue. But he had a notebook. He'd been writing letters, not to anyone in particular, just to strangers. Letters about what the woods sound like in the morning, about the crack of ice on the lake, about the way silence settles on your shoulders when you haven't spoken in days. He said, "I write these so I remember that language exists, that thought still matters." Then he read one, just a few lines. But it stayed with me all day. Today I saw a red fox. It didn't run, just stared. I waved. It blinked. We understood each other perfectly. No sides, no war, just winter. There's something about that kind of loneliness that doesn't feel empty. It feels clean. Like the world is still trying to remember what peace looks like when no one's watching. And maybe, if we're lucky, it'll show us again. Maybe someone will still be listening. It's strange how some things keep working even when everything else falls apart. There's a vending machine in the lobby downstairs. Still lights up, still hums. No snacks left inside, not even a stale pack of gum. But it glows blue in the dark like it's waiting for someone to press a button. It makes me think. Some machines don't know how to stop. They weren't built for endings, just for loops, for routines. They keep going, because no one told them not to. I think some people are like that too. You can see it in the way they sweep the floor even when the ceiling's cracked. The way they feed strays when they barely have food for themselves. The way they turn broken things over in their hands like maybe, just maybe, they can put them back together. I got a voice message from a father in Indiana. Said he's been walking 3 miles every night just to get a signal and check if this station's still on. Said his daughter likes the sound of my voice, calls it the calm man. He told me she's 9, has a toy rabbit with no eyes, carries it in a shoebox wrapped in an old scarf. Every night before she sleeps, she asks, "Did the calm man talk today?" He plays her a few minutes of the broadcast when he can. She doesn't always understand the words, but she listens because she trusts the tone. I don't know what to say to that, other than, if you're still out there, walking with that radio in your hand, I hear you too. Tell her I'm still here, and I'll keep talking. In Arizona, someone's been leaving chalk drawings on walls near old bus stops, big sweeping scenes, mountains, rivers, children flying kites, cities full of trees and gardens instead of wires and drones. No words, just images, always in bright colors, reds, greens, yellows. People started calling the artist Chroma. No one's seen them, but the drawings keep appearing. Every few nights, like clockwork. Some of them cover entire underpasses. One woman said she cried when she saw the drawing of a mother braiding her daughter's hair in the sun. Said it reminded her of her sister, of a summer that doesn't exist anymore. That's the thing about memory. It's not just about what happened. It's about what could have happened, what almost did, what we still hope might. Out near Houston, I heard about a community that's living inside a half-finished mall, one of those development projects that never got funded. Concrete frames, open skylights, no stores. They call it Block 47. It's organized, quiet. Every family gets a section. Everyone takes a shift. Security, cleaning, meal prep, water hauling. They don't use radios much. Don't trust the airwaves. But someone smuggled out a letter and mailed it through a long chain of people until it ended up in my hands. It said, "We don't light fires, we don't raise flags, but we sing. Every Friday, together, even if we're off key, even if the kids forget the words, we sing." I wish you could hear that. Not just the notes, the breathing between them, the pauses where people look at each other, unsure, then smile when they remember they're not alone. That's what music does. That's what this station tries to be. Not a command, not an anthem, just a thread between hands. Thin, but unbroken. Someone else sent me a recording from a tunnel near Cleveland. It's just wind and dripping water. But near the end, you can hear 2 people laughing, quietly, almost like they're trying not to. Like joy itself is risky now, but they couldn't help it. That's what gives me hope. Not speeches, not movements, just laughter in a tunnel, a drawing on a wall, a song sung off key by people who don't know if they'll make it through the week. And still, they keep going. So if you're curled up in the dark right now, if you're cold or scared or numb, I want you to know this. Somewhere out there, someone just laughed. Somewhere, someone sang. Somewhere, a kid is asking about the calm man on the radio. That's what we've still got. That's what hasn't broken. And that's enough. You ever notice how quiet the sky is now? No jets, no airliners, no trails of white crossing from coast to coast, just open blue or gray or black depending on the time of day. Sometimes it feels fake, like someone painted it on and forgot to move the clouds. I used to live near an airport, the kind that had flights coming in every 15 minutes. I hated the noise. Now I miss it. I miss the sound of life moving overhead. Last night I stood outside the station after the generator went out. Power's tight lately. I didn't move, just stood there looking up. Cold air, bare trees, nothing above me. No movement, no blinking lights, no distant engines. Then I saw one small spark. Could have been a drone. Could have been space junk. Could have been a star deciding to wink, just once, to let me know I wasn't the only one awake. And that was enough to keep me going. Someone in northern Georgia sent a message this morning. Said they built a little shrine in the woods. Not to any god, just to the past. Little objects stuck into the bark of trees, bottle caps, toy soldiers, train tickets, a cracked phone screen with a smile still frozen on it. They call it the Yesterday Grove. People pass through and add their own pieces. No rules, no explanations, just fragments of what once mattered. That feels honest. Because grief doesn't always show up with tears and speeches. Sometimes it looks like a crayon drawing nailed to a pine tree. Sometimes it sounds like a voicemail played over and over, even when you've memorized every breath. I've been getting more of those lately. Recordings from before, birthday messages, road trip playlists, voice memos that people thought they deleted but found again in the quiet. They send them to me, not to play on the air, just to share, just to know someone else heard it. There's one from a kid in St. Louis. His sister's voice, maybe 5 years old, singing the alphabet wrong on purpose just to make him laugh. She's gone now. He didn't say how. Just that she used to do that every morning while brushing her teeth. He wrote, "That sound used to annoy me. Now I play it to sleep." I get that. There's a woman near Boise who leaves notes on abandoned houses. Just paper and tape. Always the same message. You mattered. You were real. Someone remembers. She doesn't know who lived there. Doesn't care if it's a trap. She says it's not about accuracy. It's about dignity. I think that's something we've forgotten how to give each other. We talk about survival, about food, water, heat. But what about meaning? What about grace? What about letting someone feel human even when the world treats them like inventory? That's what I try to do here. One voice, one signal. No judgment. I don't know what you did before. I don't care if you ran, fought, hid, or failed. You're listening now. That's what matters. You're trying. You're breathing. You're making choices. That makes you real. That makes you worth hearing. There's a town somewhere west of Denver, I won't say the name, not out loud, that's built its whole routine around a single church bell. Not for faith, not for worship, just for rhythm. One ring every 3 hours. Wake up, boil water, rotate watch, share stories, sleep. The bell keeps them honest, keeps them moving. Someone wrote me and said, "It's not a religion, it's a heartbeat." That's how I think of this station. Not as a message, as a pulse. Even when the words don't land, even when the static grows, you can still feel it. This soft, steady thump behind the chaos. I'm still here. You're still here. We're still beating. I got a package today, wrapped in newspaper, held together with twine. No return address, but postmarked from somewhere near Flagstaff. Inside, a cassette tape, an old army patch, and a folded piece of paper with a single line written in pencil. This is all I have left of him. The tape had no label, so I played it on the backup deck. It was someone singing, not polished, not radio ready, Just a voice in a small room, maybe a garage, singing softly. No instruments, just breath and melody. The kind of song you only sing when you think no one's listening. I sat there and let the whole thing play. And when it ended, I didn't say anything for a long time. Because sometimes, silence is the only answer to love that deep. Whoever sent that, I hear you. I hear him. And I promise you, now the whole world does too. Or at least the part of it that's still tuned in. There's something that's been on my mind all day. A phrase I read scrawled across a wall near a checkpoint that's long since gone cold. It said, "We weren't built for this, but we're doing it anyway." That's it. No names, no claims. Just that. It stuck with me. Because it's true. None of us were made for this. Not for checkpoints. Not for blackouts. Not for missing people who haven't even been gone long enough to forget. But here we are, breathing, fighting off hunger, helping strangers, laughing when we can, and telling stories when nothing else makes sense. I got another call from someone who's been on the road for 2 weeks. No fuel, just walking, pulling a wagon with 2 kids and a jug of water. She didn't ask for help, didn't ask for pity. She just wanted someone to know she existed. She said, "When my legs give out, I want to have already told someone we were real." I told her, "I hear you. And you are real, more real than most of what's out there now. And you're not alone." Another message, this one from a man living near what used to be Columbus. He's planted beans along the highway divider, just stuck them in the cracks between the pavement using rainwater and compost from burnt leaves. He said, "If they grow, it means something still works. I hope they do. I hope they crack through that hard cement like fingers reaching for light." That's what we are, all of us. Little stubborn roots in a broken street. We grow anyway. I want to say something to the people who don't know how to go on. The ones listening with hands over their mouths. The ones who don't say anything out loud because they're scared the sound will make it real. I know what it feels like to be afraid to hope. I know what it feels like to think everything beautiful has already burned. But it hasn't. There are still people making art with broken glass and sidewalk chalk. There are still people reading bedtime stories by candlelight and letting their kids dream about dragons instead of drones. There are still people building hammocks out of old seatbelts just so someone else can rest easy for a few hours. That's what survival looks like now. Not just staying alive, but refusing to let the worst parts of this world erase the best parts of ourselves. And maybe that's the only resistance that matters. You don't have to fight. You don't have to lead. You just have to stay soft in a world that keeps trying to harden you. That's how we win. I woke up today with a dream still stuck in my head. It wasn't violent. No fires, no shouting, no uniforms. Just a kitchen, bright light, coffee bubbling in a pot, someone humming near the stove, toast burning a little around the edges, a hand on my shoulder, a voice saying, "Sit. It's almost ready." I didn't want to open my eyes, because in that dream, nothing had broken yet. Not the country, not the sky, not the people I used to call when something didn't make sense. I lay there for a long time, listening to the quiet of the station, the wind outside, the creak of the beams, the soft tick of a wire swinging against metal, and I tried to hold that kitchen in my head for as long as I could. But dreams fade fast these days. Reality comes quicker than it used to. There's no toast, no humming, No coffee smell in the air, just canned static, cold floor, and the knowledge that I've got another 24 hours of truth to live through. Still, I got up. Still, I turned on the board. Still, I'm here. Because even if the kitchen's gone, the memory isn't. And maybe that's the point. Maybe memory is the resistance. I got a letter, handwritten, smudged, folded 6 times, no envelope, just slipped under the station's outer door sometime last week. It said, "If you're still broadcasting, then I'm still believing." That was it. No name, no other message. I've read it maybe 100 times now. Not because it tells me anything new, but because it reminds me why I talk into this microphone day after day, even when the power dips and the wind howls and my throat burns from dryness, because someone out there is still listening. Someone out there needs to hear a voice that doesn't ask for anything back. This one's for you. I heard from someone in what's left of Sacramento. They've started a kind of oral library. No books, no power, just people sitting in a circle taking turns telling what they remember. Movies, stories, recipes, songs, jokes, science facts, old urban legends, everything. They call it the memory ring. One person speaks, the next repeats it, the next adds something of their own, and it goes around like that until it sticks. That's how they pass time. That's how they teach the kids. That's how they remember that the world used to have more in it than checkpoints and curfews. One of them, a man in his 60s, used to teach biology, said, "If I don't tell them about oceans, they'll forget they were ever real." That hit me like a brick. Because that's the risk now, isn't it? Not just dying, but forgetting. Forgetting what it felt like to sit on a porch and argue about movies. Forgetting the sound of crowds at baseball games, not screaming out of fear, but out of joy. Forgetting that music was once played loud just because it made people dance. If we lose those things, we don't just lose the country. We lose the point of it. And maybe we're not there yet. Maybe we still have enough breath to carry this forward. So keep talking. Keep telling stories. Keep cooking old meals, even if you don't have all the ingredients. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be alive. There's a boy in New Mexico who's been carving words into driftwood and sending them downriver. He doesn't sign them. Just one word on each. Love, try, home, listen. That's all. And somewhere down that river, someone's going to pick one up. Someone's going to hold that worn piece of wood in their hands and feel less alone. That matters, even now, especially now. I don't hear many dogs anymore. Used to be, if you walked down any street in America, you'd hear one barking. Behind a fence, from a porch, in the back of a pickup. They were everywhere. Background noise. Always alert. Always announcing the world. Now it's just quiet. Not gone though. Just quiet. I got a message from a woman outside Cincinnati. She said there's a black lab that follows her through the woods every morning. Never gets too close, never makes a sound. Just stays 5 or 6 steps behind her as she walks her loop, like it's standing guard. She calls him Smoke. Doesn't know if that's his real name, probably isn't. But she says he shows up like fog and disappears just as easy. She leaves scraps for him. He never eats while she's there, just waits for her to move on. But he always comes back, and maybe that's enough. We talk so much about loyalty like it's something loud, something brave, but maybe it's quieter than that. Maybe it's just showing up, being nearby, holding space. Smoke does that. Maybe you do too. Some of you write in and you say things like, I don't have much to offer, or I'm not brave, or I'm just trying to stay out of the way. But let me say something to you, clearly, so it sticks. You're doing more than you think. You're waking up in a world that doesn't make sense, and you're still brushing your teeth if you have water. You're still talking to your kids, even if your voice cracks. You're still listening to me, even if the static is thick. You haven't disappeared. And that matters. Out in what's left of Florida, there's a woman who's been replanting citrus trees. Small ones, just saplings. She says she does it because one day someone will need oranges again. She doesn't expect to see them grow. Doesn't even know if the soil's any good. But she plants them anyway, one tree at a time. When I asked her why, she said, because I want to leave behind more than just stories about what we lost. That stuck with me. Because we all talk about what we've lost. That's easy. That's everywhere. But how often do we talk about what we're building? Quietly, softly, slowly. That's where hope lives. In the planting, in the mending, in the singing that still happens, even when no one's listening. A man in Montana wrote that he's been stitching clothes for strangers, took apart old flags, coats, torn curtains, anything with fabric, turned it into jackets, hats, gloves. He leaves them in bus stops and mailboxes, doesn't wait around, doesn't leave a note, just sews, folds, walks away. He said, I'm not a soldier, but this is my front line. If you're doing something kind, something small and quiet and good, then yeah, that's your front line. And I salute you. You don't have to pick up a weapon to defend what's left of the world. Sometimes you just have to make someone warm. Sometimes you just have to listen. Sometimes you just have to name the stars out loud so someone else remembers they exist. We're not out of time yet. We're not out of stories. We're not out of hands that can still build. We're not out of hearts that can still open. So if all you did today was get through it, that's something. That counts. The world keeps trying to pull us into two sides. This group, that group, this flag, that leader, this rule, that border. But there's another side no one talks about. The side of the people who just want to help, not for profit, not for rank, not for credit. Just because. And I think, when all of this is over, if it ever ends, that's who's going to rebuild what's left. Not the loud ones, the quiet ones, the planters, the sewers, the people who follow you in silence just to keep watch. People like smoke. There's a hill near here, not too far. You can see it from the back window of the station if the fog isn't too thick. I used to go up there some mornings before everything started falling apart. Just sit with a thermos and let the sun touch my face. You could see the whole town from up there. Grocery store, firehouse, the little diner where they always played old country songs through blown-out speakers. You can't see much now. Too many fires. Too much ash in the air. But sometimes, on a clear morning, I still walk to the top. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. Or maybe I just want to remember what it felt like when the world was still soft. Yesterday, I found a photo up there, taped to a stick, stuck in the ground like a flag. It was faded. A family, smiling in the sun. 2 parents, 3 kids. You couldn't make out their faces, too washed out. but the joy was still there. Someone had written one word on the back. Still. That word has been in my head ever since. Still here. Still breathing. Still walking up hills with no promise of a view. Still waiting for a sky that doesn't smell like metal and smoke. Still. I want to talk to the people who haven't sent messages, the ones who've never written in, never called, never taped a letter to a drone or carved a name into a wall. You're not invisible. I know you're out there. I know the silence isn't always a lack of feeling. Sometimes it's the weight of too much grief, too much fear, too many memories you're scared will fall apart if you say them out loud. It's okay. You don't have to speak to be part of this. You don't have to send anything. Just listening, just surviving, is enough. Every beat of your heart is a reply. Every breath is a broadcast. I got a call last night from a man in North Dakota. Said he's been living in an old grain silo, converted it into a shelter. His wife passed a year ago. Not from the war, just from time. He stayed, kept the land, said the wheat still grows if you're patient. He plays harmonica to keep the birds from feeling lonely. When I asked him if he needed anything, he said, "Just keep talking. Some days that's the only thing that makes this place feel real." So I'm talking. For him. For you. For the woman in Maine who mails paper cranes to every address she can still remember. For the teenager in Milwaukee who teaches the neighborhood kids how to cook rice over a fire. For the group in Utah that walks old railroad lines, repainting mile markers with bright red numbers, so no one feels completely lost. I'm talking for all of you. Because if this war has done anything, it's shown us what was always true, that the smallest things carry the most weight. A drawing, a meal, a photo on a hill. Still. That's the word I'm holding on to. The world can burn. The systems can collapse. The leaders can fall one by one like dominoes no one remembers setting up in the first place. But we're still here. And until that changes, until this frequency goes dark for good, I'll be right here too. One voice, one hill, one small promise whispered into the static. You ever notice how time doesn't really move the way it used to? Back before everything split open, there was a rhythm to it all. Morning had a feel. Afternoon had a pace. Night had a sound. You didn't need a clock to know where you were in the day. You just felt it in your bones. Heard it in the background noise of other people living their lives. Now it all blends. You wake up and it could be morning or evening or 2 hours before dawn. The sky doesn't always help. Too much haze, too many fires, too many cities lighting the clouds orange with something that's not electricity anymore. I mark my time by this broadcast, by this old board lighting up, by the soft crackle when I flip the signal on, by the moment I sit in this chair and breathe deep before I speak. That's how I know the day has started. A woman out near Tulsa wrote me once. She said the only way she knows what day it is anymore is by counting how many times her rooster crows. She's not even sure if it's accurate. She just likes the sound. Says it gives her something to answer to, some sense of place. And I get that, because without these little anchors, everything just floats. Memories get blurry. Conversations feel like dreams. The past folds in on itself. But every time I sit here and talk, I know that at least for a few minutes, something's moving forward. Even if it's just one sentence at a time. I want to read something that came in from a man who used to work in film. projectionist at a small movie house in Vermont. He said, "I keep imagining that I'm still up there in the booth, watching the reels spin, watching people in the seats forget their lives for 90 minutes. I miss that. The forgetting. Not because life was bad, but because there was peace in not having to be yourself for a little while." He said he now projects shadows on the wall using old flashlights and shapes he cuts out of cardboard. He invites the neighborhood kids, what's left of them, to sit on blankets in the grass. They laugh, not because they know what a movie is, but because they like watching something flicker. They call it light stories. Can you imagine? A war out there, chewing through the edges of every state, and this man is making little puppet shows with cardboard because kids still need to laugh. That's the kind of courage we don't talk about enough. We spend so much time counting guns, tracing battle lines, listening for drone engines overhead. But the real fight, the one that matters, happens in backyards, in kitchens with cracked tile and quiet hands cutting apples in silence. I had a dream the other night, not like the kitchen one. This one was darker. I was walking through what used to be a mall, the kind with fountains and those awful overhead lights. Only now the lights were out. And the mannequins, they weren't in stores anymore. They were lined up in rows, like they were waiting for something. No faces, just smooth plastic, no one else around. And I remember standing there and thinking, this used to be a place where people touched things just because they could, where they walked slow, just to kill time. Then the dream broke, and I was back here, wires humming, wind against the window. Another long night waiting for sunrise. But even in the dark, even half awake, I kept thinking about that line. Just because they could. That's what we've lost. Not just safety, not just food, not just peace. We lost the casual stuff, the things we did without thinking, things we didn't know were sacred until they were gone. Like leaning over and asking a stranger, "Do you know what time it is?" Or tapping someone on the shoulder in line because they dropped something, or hearing laughter echo down a hallway and walking toward it without fear. I got a letter, more like a journal entry, from a teenager somewhere outside of Boise. He didn't sign it, but he wrote pages. Said he writes 1 page a day and buries it in jars behind different buildings in town. Says it helps him feel like he's leaving a trail. This is from one of his pages. I don't know if I'm growing up or just getting better at being scared. My voice sounds deeper in the cold. I miss microwaves and light switches and the sound of my mom humming when she did the dishes. If someone finds this, I hope you don't give up. I hope you say thank you when someone hands you something warm. I hope you keep your shoes dry. That's more important than people think. I sat with that for a long time. Still am. Because that kid, whoever he is, understands something a lot of adults forgot. That survival isn't just food and water. It's kindness. It's warmth. It's dry shoes. That's the real map now. Not roads or borders or zones, but tiny things that keep a soul intact. I've been thinking lately about what happens after this. Not to the country. No one can guess how this ends. Not to the maps. Not to the factions. I mean after. Personally. Individually. What kind of people will we be? Will we know how to talk again, face to face, without suspicion? Will we be able to listen without scanning for lies? Will we remember how to be bored without guilt? How to trust someone enough to fall asleep in front of them? I don't know. But I think we have to start practicing now. even if it's just pretending. Pretend the voice on the radio is someone you know. Pretend the person sitting across from you is trying their best. Pretend your hands can still build something that matters. That's what I'm doing here. Every hour, every word, pretending towards something real. And maybe, if enough of us pretend at the same time, long enough, strong enough, it becomes something more. Something solid, something that can't be taken away. There's this sound the generator makes when it starts to fail, kind of a cough, like a deep inhale that never finishes. You hear it once, you'll always know what it means. Power's been flickering more lately. Batteries don't hold like they used to. Fuel's been harder to trade for. Most people don't care about radio anymore, not with all the encrypted peer-to-peer mesh chatter going around. But there's still something about a real voice coming through the air, not just bouncing from node to node. You can't fake this. Not easily anyway. There's no polish here, no edits, no retakes, just breath, microphone, and whatever's left in my head when the red light comes on. Yesterday, the light didn't come on right away. It buzzed, then dimmed, then glowed like it wasn't sure if it wanted to stay. That's how I've been feeling too. But I stayed with it. Let the silence sit for a while. Let it stretch. Sometimes silence says more than anything I could. Later that night, I read a message carved into a wooden crate outside the door. Someone had burned it in with a match or maybe a heated nail. It said, "Even quiet people deserve to be heard." That's it. No signature. I stared at it for a long time, hand resting on the knob of the door, just thinking about how many voices never made it to a microphone, how many stories never got written down, how many people never got a final word before they vanished. And I realized something. That's what this whole station is now. Not just news, not just updates. It's an archive of the overlooked. It's a scrapbook of moments no one else kept. Like this one. There's a man out in western Kentucky who walks 10 miles every Sunday just to ring an old school bell. The building's gone, roof collapsed, windows shot out, boards rotting. But the bell still hangs there, still works. He says he rings it for the people who never got a goodbye. Every toll is for someone he couldn't save. Every echo is a name he didn't get to write down. He doesn't expect anyone to hear it. He just wants the sound to go somewhere. I got a recording of it. It's faint, windy. The clapper drags on the third ring like it's remembering its age. But it's real. It's so real it made my chest ache. I played it 3 times before sunrise. Let the silence stretch out between each set. Let the bell echo into whatever corners of this country still had ears. Some of you wrote in, said it sounded like memory, said it sounded like someone lighting a candle inside your ribs. I think that's what grief does. It hollows you out, but it leaves space for light. There's a little girl living in the basement of an old courthouse somewhere near Asheville. Her parents built walls with blankets and rope, sectioned off space from the others taking shelter there. She has a pile of books she can't read, just flips through them for the pictures. She told her mom she likes listening to the radio because it feels like someone is outside, even when they can't leave, even when it's too dark to find the stairs. That hit me hard, because there are so many of you out there right now, stuck. Not just physically, stuck in your own heads, in fear, in waiting, in the quiet of too much loss. But just because you feel trapped doesn't mean you're forgotten. You're not. This signal might be weak, but it's reaching, and it's meant for you. You, with the broken lock on your door. You, with the half-empty canteen and one good pair of socks. You, with the family you're trying to keep calm even though you're scared yourself. You're doing it. You're here. You don't need anyone's permission to count. Another story. This one from someone near Santa Fe. An older woman. Used to run a quilt shop before the roads got cut off. Now she uses scraps to stitch maps of places that aren't there anymore. She said, "I sew the highways I remember. I sew the cities we lost. I sew the rivers where we used to take pictures. It's not to pretend. It's to remember where we've been." She gives them away. Says memory shouldn't be hoarded. That stuck with me. Because sometimes remembering is the only thing we can do that doesn't feel like a loss. Sometimes it's the first step toward whatever comes next. And maybe, just maybe, these stories are threads. Maybe this whole broadcast is one big patchwork of what's left of us. Not polished, not perfect, but stitched together with whatever we've still got in our hands. If you're hearing this, and you've been thinking that what you're doing doesn't matter, I'm telling you, it does. The way you hold your neighbor's kid when they cry, it matters. The way you share that last battery so someone else can hear this, it matters. The way you write a name in chalk on the pavement outside what used to be your house, that matters too. We don't get monuments anymore, but we do get echoes. And as long as I have breath, I'll keep making sure those echoes reach someone. There's a road sign a few miles south of here, cracked, leaning, half covered in vines, the kind that used to tell you how far you were from the next big city. The distance numbers have faded, peeled off with time and weather, but the arrows are still there. One left, one right. No matter how many times I pass it, I always slow down. Not because I'm unsure where I'm going. It's the same road every time. But because there's something about a fork in the road that still makes you stop and think. We don't get choices like we used to. The world we live in now doesn't ask. It tells. Tells you when to run, when to stay quiet, when to barter, when to leave someone behind because there's no more space in the truck bed. But that sign, those arrows, they remind me we used to choose. We used to decide where we wanted to end up. We used to flip coins for diners or beaches. We used to take wrong turns on purpose just to see where the road went. And I wonder if we'll ever get that again. That kind of freedom. Not the loud flag-waving kind. The small, ordinary kind. The kind where you pick between two exits and neither one feels like a threat. Sometimes I think that's what I miss most. Today, someone left a note on the front gate, folded in plastic, paper thin as onion skin, written with the kind of careful handwriting people only use when they're trying not to cry. It said, "I don't want revenge. I just want breakfast with my brother again." No name, no explanation. Just that. And I think that says more than any speech, any broadcast, any anthem. Because under all of this, the barricades, the smoke, the politics twisted into fists, what people really want is the soft stuff. Shared coffee, warm food, a dumb joke across a kitchen table. We talk about war like it's about ideas, but it's really about interruptions, about ripping people out of their normal, about stopping mornings before they can happen, about putting distance between chairs that used to sit side by side. I've been thinking a lot about distance, not the miles between cities, the space between people. A listener from what's left of Birmingham told me she hasn't touched another person in 54 days. Not a hug, not a handshake, not even brushing shoulders by accident. She said, "I didn't know how much skin matters until mine forgot what warmth felt like." She leaves notes for strangers now, tapes them to park benches, things like, "I miss you," and "Don't disappear." She's hoping someone will reply. If you're in that part of the country and you find a note like that, write one back, even if you don't know who left it, even if all you can say is "me too." Because somewhere in the dark, that answer might be the first thing that makes someone feel real again. Someone else wrote in, a man. I won't say where, it's not safe. But he used to be a carpenter. Said he's been rebuilding playgrounds piece by piece. Not because there are many kids left in his area, just because it helps him remember what he used to build before. He said, "I'd rather spend my hands on slides than stockpiles." That line stuck with me. I imagine him out there, hammering wood into laughter-shaped frames. No paint, no crowds, just quiet work for a future that might never show up. But he builds anyway, because someone has to. There are stories like this everywhere. A teacher in Kansas holding class in an empty grain silo, teaching math with pebbles and string. A woman in Spokane drawing street maps from memory in case someone comes looking for a place that isn't on digital records anymore. A man in New Jersey planting mint because it reminds him of his grandmother's house, and he wants his children to know what that smell used to mean. It's not just resistance, it's identity. It's proof that the war hasn't taken everything. You are still here. You, with your tired eyes and your quiet kindness. You, who miss things you never thought you'd lose. I want to say something now to the ones who haven't made peace with what this country's become. You don't have to. You don't have to accept this as normal. You don't have to agree with what's been done or undone. You don't even have to understand it. You just have to hold on to decency, to memory, to that road sign with two arrows pointing opposite ways, and the thought that someday we might be able to choose again. That's enough. Tonight, when you lay your head down, whether it's on a cot or a coat, or the shoulder of someone who still breathes slow when they sleep, I hope you feel something soft, something that isn't fear, even if it's just a whisper of what used to be, because tomorrow's still unwritten, and maybe, if we're careful, we'll get to be the ones who write it. Somewhere out there, someone is learning how to be alone for the first time, and not the kind of alone you get when a friend moves away or you spend a Saturday night without plans. I'm talking about the kind of alone that lives in your chest like an echo chamber, the kind that fills up the space where your memories used to breathe easy, the kind that makes the walls feel closer. You can be surrounded by people and still feel it. I know I've said that before, but it keeps showing up in the voices I hear, the notes I get, that quiet hum under every message. It's always there, even if they don't say the word. Loneliness isn't loud, it's patient. It waits, and sometimes the only way to get through it is to admit it's there. So, if you're feeling that right now, if it's sitting next to you while you listen, if it's curled up by the door or standing in the hallway like a shadow that won't leave, I see you. You're not the only one. A boy in Alabama sent me a letter scratched into the inside of a cereal box. Said he found a pen in a glove compartment and it still worked. Said he didn't know if I was real, but the sound of my voice made it easier to fall asleep at night. He wrote, "I keep pretending that I'm writing to the future, Like maybe one day, someone's going to open this and the world will be back to normal. They'll read it and laugh because they can't imagine things ever being this bad. That helps. It's like talking to tomorrow. That line stuck with me. Talking to tomorrow. What a thing to do. I think maybe that's what we're all doing, in a way. Every time we keep going, every time we help someone, every time we build something that no one may ever see, we're talking to tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow won't talk back, but that doesn't mean it's not listening. There's a woman near Minneapolis who's been baking bread with no yeast, just water, flour, thyme, and the heat from a cracked fire brick oven. She leaves the loaves on her porch in a clean box, wrapped in old t-shirts. She doesn't ask for anything in return. She just wants people to have something warm to eat. Someone scrawled a thank you note on a gum wrapper and left it in the box last week. She sent it to me with a piece of the wrapper still stuck to a pine needle. It said, "Your bread tasted like Sunday. Thank you." That's what it's all about, isn't it? Not the big gestures, not the battles, just the moments that feel like Sunday. Slow, warm, safe. We've lost so many of those. But they're not gone completely. They're just harder to find now. There's a kind of math I do when the station goes quiet. Not numbers, but a kind of emotional bookkeeping. I try to weigh what we've lost against what we've saved. We lost open libraries, but someone in Utah still runs a story circle every night by candlelight. We lost concert halls, but in the ruins of Detroit, there's a man who plays trumpet from a rooftop every Sunday at dusk. We lost reliable clocks, but a woman in Oregon rings a bell when the clouds change, so the town knows the light is shifting. The scales never quite balance, but they get close enough to try again the next day. I got a message from a couple who used to be city planners. They've taken up residence in an old bus depot, and they're using colored chalk to map out what used to be neighborhoods. They draw lines, label buildings from memory, and invite others to add what they remember. They call it Ghost City. They say it's not about rebuilding. It's about honoring what stood. One of the things they drew was a tree, not because the tree was important, but because it was the spot where one of them proposed. The other added a bench. Then someone else added a dog that used to sleep nearby. Then a kid added a lemonade stand they remembered from 5 years ago. It's not a real map, but it's true. It's a kind of truth that lives in chalk and memory, and that's good enough for now. So tonight, if you've got a little sidewalk and a piece of chalk, maybe draw something. It doesn't have to be beautiful, just honest. A window, a sandwich, the face you remember, a radio. Put it out there. Let the sky see it. Let the wind decide what to do with it. And if someone else walks by and smiles, even just a little, then that's a win. That's a connection. That's something that didn't exist yesterday. We don't get many victories these days, but we get to make our own. There's a boy somewhere near Amarillo who built a kite out of trash bags and broomsticks. No real reason, he said. He just missed seeing something move that wasn't dangerous. Missed watching something rise. It only flies when the wind's just right, usually around dusk, he says, and he has to run with it full speed across a cracked stretch of old road to get it in the air. But when it lifts, he forgets the rest of the world. He forgets the armed checkpoints, the collapsed bridges, the silence of phones that never ring anymore. For a few seconds, it's just him, the sky, and this thing he made. He wrote, "Even if no one sees it, I know it's real. I know it flew. I think about that a lot, because when you're surrounded by things falling apart, something rising, anything, feels like a miracle, even if it only lasts a minute, even if you have to chase it. I got a radio ping last night from a woman in northern Nevada. She's been alone in an old hunting cabin for weeks now. Her dog died 3 days ago. She buried him beneath a tree she doesn't know the name of. She didn't ask for help, didn't ask for food or fuel. All she asked was, "Can you describe what the ocean sounds like?" I sat there for 10 minutes, trying to remember, not what it looks like. That's easy. We've all seen it in movies or on postcards. But what it sounds like, that's harder. I told her what I remembered, that the ocean isn't one sound, it's layers. The deep thump of waves rolling under each other, the hiss when they break, the pullback of water dragging sand behind it, the way it never quite pauses, and the soft knocking of seashells rolling like dice across the shore. Then I played static from the old cassette deck and let it run for 2 minutes. It wasn't the ocean, but it was something close, a soft noise, an idea of water. And maybe that's enough. Sometimes an idea is all we've got. There's a man in the ruins of Baton Rouge who rebuilt a piano out of scrap and string. It only plays 9 notes. He calls it the almost piano. Every night he sits on the steps of what used to be a city hall and plays the same song. Says it doesn't matter if anyone hears. Says the piano helps him keep time. One of the keys sounds like a broken bell. Another squeaks like a hinge. But together, it's music. He said, "I don't need the whole song. I just need to remember what trying feels like." I think we've all felt that. The pull towards something that probably won't work, but you do it anyway. Because trying is the last thing they haven't taken. And as long as we can try, we're still free. I don't know how many people are still out there. Not really. I used to guess. Maybe a few thousand on this signal, maybe more on the mesh net. But lately, I've stopped trying to count, because even if it's just one of you, just a single pair of ears tuned in out of hope or boredom or desperation, I'm going to keep speaking. Because you matter. Because your story still exists. Because you are a page that hasn't been torn out. And if you're writing things down, like some of you do, if you're taping notes to fences or stuffing messages into cans or carving names into trees, I want you to know, it's not wasted. It may not save the world, but it might save someone. And maybe that's enough. I want to tell you something I haven't told anyone yet. There's a room in the back of this station. Used to be for storage. Shelves full of promo junk and unused gear. Now it's filled with stories, letters, notes, napkins with scribbles, drawings from kids, old postcards from cities that don't shine anymore. I don't know why I started putting them in there. I guess I wanted them to have a place. A kind of memory museum. The ceiling leaks. The heater barely works. But it's holy in a way. Quiet, steady, real. Sometimes I sit in there with the door open and just breathe. Because for every word that reaches this mic, there are 1,000 more that never make it out. But that doesn't mean they don't count. They do. Even the ones scratched into cereal boxes. Even the ones sealed in jars and buried behind sheds. Even the ones you whisper to yourself before bed, just so your own name doesn't feel so distant. We're still here. And if that's all we are, just here, then maybe that's enough too. Someone asked me once, back when this all started, "Do you think we'll come back from this?" It was late. I remember that. Maybe 2, 3 in the morning. I was sitting right here in this chair, same as now. One working bulb, coffee cold, the kind of quiet that makes the floorboards seem louder than they are. I didn't know how to answer. Not because I didn't have thoughts. I had too many. Because what does coming back even mean? Back to what? The version of this country that thought peace was permanent. The version that walked past broken things like they were someone else's problem? The version that thought democracy was a self-cleaning oven? That version's gone. But maybe that's okay. Because maybe coming back isn't about going backward. Maybe it's about coming back to each other. To what mattered before we forgot how to talk without shouting. Before we started counting people by party or state or color or flag. Before everything became a battlefield, even the airwaves. There's a woman in Delaware, still there somehow, who runs a shelter out of an old dry cleaner's shop. Keeps the machines covered in sheets, stacks canned food inside what used to be the steam press. Says when kids come in scared, she lets them press buttons just to feel like something still works. She wrote, "Most of them don't remember what the machines were for, but they like the clack sounds. Makes them feel like the world can be put back together." That stuck with me, because sometimes sound is enough. The hum of a fridge, the click of a door locking safely, the buzz of a light you can trust. We've been robbed of those sounds. Now when you hear noise, it means run, or hide, or brace. But there are still quiet machines out there. Still buttons waiting to be pressed for nothing more than the joy of cause and effect. I hope we get back to that. I hope there's a day when a kid can press a button on a soda machine and hear the can fall without flinching. I hope there's a day when footsteps behind you just mean someone's going the same direction. I hope there's a day when silence means peace, not the moment before a strike. Earlier this week, I picked up a faint signal, someone broadcasting from a mountain pass in Colorado. They didn't say much, just a few lines. But their voice was calm, measured, older. They said, "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to remind you that you were human before you were angry." Then static. Nothing since. But that voice, it's still in my head. Because that's what this all comes down to, doesn't it? We were human before the anger, before the lines in the dirt, before the checkpoints, before the uniforms and passwords and factions and banners made out of tarps. Before it all, we were just people, buying bread, fixing roofs, arguing over nothing, laughing over worse, loving in grocery store aisles and hardware parking lots and movie lines and little chapel corners with flickering lights. We can't pretend it didn't fall apart, but we also can't forget it was ever whole. A man near Flagstaff sent me an old cassette, mailed it by hand. Took him 6 weeks to get it here. 6 weeks dodging roadblocks and drones and stray dogs and people too broken to trust. Inside the case was a label, just 2 words, "My dad." I played it. Scratchy guitar, bad tuning, someone singing low, off-key, a campfire crackle in the background, wind through trees, and this voice, old, tired, kind, singing a song I didn't recognize, something about walking a fence line in early spring, about boots sinking in thawing ground, about how things grow back even after hard frost. I sat here in the dark and played that song 3 times. I didn't even cry. I just listened. Because sometimes a song is enough. sometimes a stranger's father still singing after everything is the only proof you need that the soul can't be killed by war. You don't need to be strong all the time. You don't need to be brave every hour. You just need to stay. Stay present, stay soft, stay reachable, even if no one calls, even if no one knocks, even if the only voice you hear is mine, coming through static on a dying radio. You're still reachable, and you matter. That's the truth I'll keep repeating until my voice gives out. That's the thread I'll keep pulling until it wraps all the way around this broken country. Because underneath the rubble, beneath the ash, past the politics and ruins and fires and flags, we're still in here, somewhere, and we're worth finding again.